Is there a number that you just really connect with more than any others, and
Yeah,
why?
7,
Oh,
because it's the number of diving deep. And that's what I love to do. So I love sevens. I love sevens. I work in a healing centre, and I often use her as an example. Our naturopath is a 7, and she's the perfect naturopath because you go in there and you say, oh, well, I've got these symptoms, blah, blah, blah. So she doesn't then just hand you a pill and go, there you go, dear, bye-bye. She'll be there at 11:30 at night researching every, scientific paper ever written about your symptoms, and going down the rabbit hole, and she loves it. So it's just a perfect job for someone like her. So I tend to really, and I have to say, I don't know what you've noticed over the years, but sevens can struggle during school time in particular when they're trying to fit in, because often they're seen as a little different, sometimes a little eccentric or a little unusual. And if I have a parent who I'm seeing, or I do their child psychology, their numerology, and they're a teenager, I always say, don't worry. If you're worried that they have no friends, they will find their tribe. And usually it's a little bit later on, I've noticed, for sevens.
so welcome to the Numerology Show, where we delve into the mystical world of numbers and their profound impact on our lives. I'm your host, Hayden Crawford, and today we have a special guest joining us, Emma Janetzki. Now, is that the right way to pronounce your surname?
You've Beautiful.
Have I nailed it?
You've done it.
Good. I've been practicing all morning. Now, Emma is a seasoned practitioner who seamlessly blends the analytical rigor of psychology with the intuitive wisdom of numerology. With over 2 decades of experience as a registered psychologist, Emma transitioned into the realms of soul counselling, yoga, and numerology, offering a holistic approach to self-discovery and healing. So, through her patients, Emma assists individuals in uncovering their life purpose, understanding karmic lessons, and navigating personal challenges by interpreting the energetic vibrations of numbers. So join us as we explore the transformative power of numerology with Emma Janetzki. So fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us today, Emma. It's a true honor.
My pleasure.
Now, Emma, could you share with us your journey from being a registered psychologist to embracing numerology and soul counselling?
For sure. So I actually did my psychology degree straight out from school. And like a lot of them won't admit it, but like a lot of psychologists, probably most, we choose to study psychology to figure ourselves out and to figure out all the people around us that maybe, we find confusing, or just to have a really more in-depth exploration into the workings of the mind. So that was part of my motivation to be a psychologist. But I knew pretty early on during my degree that going and working in for example, a clinical mental health unit in a hospital or something like that would just be too much, because even though I didn't know the terms for it, I am a highly sensitive person, and I just had this feeling, even, at that young age, that if I did that sort of work, I would burn out very, very quickly. So I chose to do a different path, and that was going into corporate psychology, counselling, and organisational psychology. And with that sort of work, I dealt with, you might not call people in organisations necessarily normal, but more the range of normal behaviour, I suppose. And I absolutely loved it. And it was change management work, it was management consulting work, it was in the 90s in Brisbane. That was the time when there was massive downsizing of organisations and restructuring, and thousands of people were being retrenched. So part of my job was to go into those organisations to help those people, often to be sometimes the first person they saw after they got this news of having worked in this place for 35 years and see ya, your job's going. And then helping them on that path to healing for sure, but also transitioning most practically into maybe another professional job. So I loved that work. It was really amazing, but I just had this feeling that there was something more for me, and I didn't quite know what that was. And then when I had my children, it became an opportunity to shake it up a bit. And I then started looking into yoga and became a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher as well. And through that, got into yoga philosophy and the esoteric sort of side of things. And I'd always, my whole life, studied the spiritual. It was always absolutely, probably like you, Hayden, absolutely fascinating to me. And I'd always looked into that, but most people weren't interested in it and thought it was all a bit strange. And my family wasn't really interested in it at all. And through a lot of self-development, a lot of work on myself, and just looking more deeply at life, I somehow wanted to bring together the psychology and that side of helping people with the spiritual side as well. And so I looked around for a tool. And in psychology, you have a lot of tools. You've got these personality disorder assessments and instruments, and they're all evidence-based, and they've got decades of research into them, and they're quite wonderful for some applications, but it wasn't right. And I can't even remember how it came to me, but I started to see numbers everywhere. And as I started to see the numbers, I thought, well, what does it mean? I'm seeing these 11s everywhere, often numerologists, that's maybe the first one you see, and started to just research it myself. And then I started a little notepad with the feelings I would get, intuitive feelings, because I'm an intuitive, of the numbers and what maybe they mean to me when I was seeing these numbers. And that's sort of how I started. So I wasn't really reading anything at that time. And then I read just this one book on numerology. And as it was quite a long and complicated book. And as I got about halfway through it, and it was Pythagoras' method, I remember the author saying, if you're still with me now with these calculations, some people just get this. And I thought, oh, that's me. I just get it. It's as though I'd done it before. And I thought, this is an amazing tool to help people. So then I started on my family. I started on my friends. Is this for real? I'm a psychologist. I go by the scientific method. What's this numerology thing? But I found it was legitimate, and it was helpful, most importantly. And then by that time I was doing the soul counselling work, which is my own framework for helping people with any sort of problem at all. And then I started to bring in the numerology to help people in these counselling sessions. And people's minds were just blown. And then I started to combine it. So I was doing numerology readings by themselves. And then I combined the soul counselling with the numerology as well. So that, in a very little nutshell, is my journey from psychologist to numerologist and soul counselor.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I mean, I feel, like it's a very tangible sort of journey that you've been on, through all of that. And it's almost like the work that you did within psychology really helped to build the foundations for you to then use those skills in your soul counseling, and the numerology coming in as being that final sort of cherry on top of the cake. That
Yes.
helped you get the information that you really needed to be able to help people at a soul level. And I love the fact that you were so open-minded, to be able to explore the esoteric and actually blend those two worlds. So you're almost like a bridge between two schools of thought, the left brain and the right brain, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So how does your background in psychology enhance your approach to your numerology readings, do you think?
Yes. Well, the reason most people find me, and I don't really advertise, I sort of do things quite organically. The most common thing they'll say is, what I loved about you, or why I'm choosing you, is because you've got the both. So you're not, I'm not touting myself as a psychic healer or something like that, or an energy healer. Because some people are uncomfortable with that and they think, oh, is that all woo-woo? Are they making it up? What are their credentials? So I think people see that I have those credentials, plus not just then, having 1 year's experience, having a lot of experience in it, and then drawing on that spiritual side as well, that I think there's not many of us that are doing that. But I do think it's a way of the future. I think it would be so fabulous if psychology, or at least the branches of psychology, would move in this direction. I think that would be amazing, just in terms of helping people in a broader perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely lends it that credibility, and people tend to value, what's been sort of scientifically proven as well as anything that's esoteric.
Mm.
So fantastic, great work. There'll be a lot of people watching, I should imagine, that are, identifying with what you're saying, and especially people that are, sort of maybe in traditional psychologist roles, and
Mm.
because there is a lot of it's almost like they have rules and regulations to follow, that it's
Yes.
almost quite scary for them to dip outside of that in case that they are, there is judgment cast upon them. Did you find that you went through all of that as well?
Yeah. And I thank you for asking that question, because it is a really important one. And I did have to make probably one of the hardest decisions in my life way back when. With psychology, and to be a registered psychologist, there's a whole lot of hoops that you have to go through, and that's marvelous. Like, you can't just have any old person calling themselves a psychologist, and that's how it should be. But those hoops became not right for me, and I just felt, oh, is this really how I want to spend the rest of my life, following these rules and regulations? I've got that background, I've got the integrity, I understand ethics, I've got all that anyway, and that's part of who I am. But I really need to go my own way. And so I had to make the decision to no longer be a registered psychologist. So obviously I've still got the qualification, I've still had all the experience. But back then, for certainly, there wasn't any scope for moving outside that box in psychology land. Whether that's changed, I don't know. I truly hope it does in the future. And I do know at least a handful of psychologists that are thinking outside the box and are bringing in their own spiritual insights in some way, shape, or form into their help with people. So that's amazing, I think.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for, being open and honest about that, because, a lot of the ladies that we get coming on our retreats, are, sort of gone down the more traditional route initially, and then they are almost scared of moving into the soul realm, because, it's like, oh, well, what does this mean? I'm going to lose my job, and all of this. So I see it all the time, actually. So it's
Mm.
wonderful to see you as a thriving example of somebody who's crossed the bridge and is actually thriving and enjoying a life of less restriction.
Mm.
So that's wonderful. So for those who are unfamiliar, how would you describe the essence of Western numerology? It is Pythagorean that you follow, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. Yes. The essence of it. Goodness. What a question. um, I just feel it's such an amazing tool to really access that part of ourselves that so many people, they're not sure what it is about, the non-material world, and they're not really sure what they don't know, but they know there's more. They know there's more to life than working, eating, sleeping, get up the next day, watch some crap TV. They know there's more, but they're not quite sure which path to go down in that regard. And I feel with numerology, once you start to understand it, it gives you some solidity. And what I love about it is the yearly, like the personal year, and really looking at what might be coming up. And if you're trying to push in this area of your life, but your personal year is not supportive of that, then you're going to have a really hard time. And just people just knowing that tiny little bit of information can take such a load off someone's shoulders. So the essence of it, it's just helpful. I believe.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting what you're saying about, if people are trying to push whilst they're in a trough year, for example, like a four, it's just not going to happen, is it?
Not gonna happen.
It's never going to happen. So yeah, absolutely. It almost gives people permission to surrender, do the hard yards, and then maybe reap the rewards a bit later on in their 9-year cycle, which is good.
Oh,
So
and I have to say, because this is really interesting in the soul counselling work, and even if someone's just coming for a numerology reading, the most common years, and I know it's not going to be a surprise to you, but if I looked at this statistically, it would be quite astounding. So the most common years that people see me is in their 5-year, or they're coming up to their 5-year, or in their 9-year, or they're just coming up to their 9-year. And of course, what are those 2 years? A year of change and everything, feeling chaotic maybe, and the 9-year of endings as well, where they might feel, oh, why am I feeling so emotional this year? Or I'm having to let these things go and it's doing my head in. Or I feel there's something more for me and I don't know, I'm not quite there yet because they're not in their 1 year, of course. So, yeah, it's quite interesting that so many people are in their 5 and their 9-year when they come for counselling.
thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing because, I guess that, with you, because you seem to be somebody who's, very in touch with their left, brain as well. So you mentioned that you almost like have sort of evidence-based practices, where you can actually monitor, these things and then look at patterns that appear
Yes,
which is fabulous, and I think that's important in the practice of numerology to be able to see those patterns, isn't it, emerging? How else
absolutely.
do you see those patterns appearing in people's birth charts?
Well, something that, again, I don't believe in coincidence, Hayden. I'm sure you don't either. I do believe in synchronicity, and that has been many a year standing of that belief for many reasons. But another pattern that can't be explained logically is when I sit down and I do charts, often I'll do them a few in a row. And so when I'm preparing charts, it is absolutely insane that you'll have a few in a row, all of the same life path number or all of the same year or whatever, like all these coincidences. And you think, what? Or I'll have a whole day of counseling people all with the same main numbers on their chart. I mean, statistically, again, it's crazy to even think how would that happen. So that's why I don't believe in coincidence. And that's why I just love to see those patterns. And that's actually also why I do my calculations by hand. I know not everyone does that, and I completely understand why. But I like to see, as I'm doing the calculations, the little mini calculations, and what that might mean as well. So it's like intuitively just seeing these patterns as I'm doing someone's chart.
Okay, brilliant. So there's a bit to unpack there. So first of all, I totally agree with that, and I see these patterns emerging. Of doing a bunch of charts because normally I leave my reports until kind of like the end of the week, and then I'll do them, and I'll be like, oh my God, like they're all
They're
seven.
all whatevers, yeah.
Yeah, or they'll all be Lyran or all be Andromedan, star origin. And I'll be like, or maybe I'm doing the calculations wrong, and I'm just like trying to do all that. So definitely, I think it's almost like what I call birds of a feather flocking together. It's like a
Yeah,
wave of energy that hits you at the same time with a
correct.
certain, demographic. And it could be astrological based timings, numerology, anything, but it's synchronicity, I
I think
think that you notice a lot of, isn't it?
And what I do believe is people always, with counselling, they always make their session exactly when they're most meant to make their session. So if someone is ill and they can't make that day, it's like, okay, this is fine. It's going to be at a time that's right for you. And that might mean that you need to be in a session nearer the new moon or nearer the full moon or where certain, astrological aspects are in your chart. And I think that would be one logical explanation of why you might on one day have all fives that day or whatever it might be. Yes, I agree with what you're saying completely.
It's very fascinating, isn't it, when you sort of delve deeply into it. So, what are you? I'd be interested to find out, if we can have a look at, your ruling number. When you start a reading for somebody,
Yes.
I know you mentioned you do them by hand.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process that you would normally follow? And do you extract all of the numbers from the Pythagorean system, or do you just focus on the main ones?
Um, I I really go with the flow in a session, so it's hard to say because I just intuitively are drawn to certain aspects of the chart. And I'm not sure if what I might call some of my numbers might not be what other people call them, because I know this sounds a bit strange, but this is why I knew numerology was singing to me. My nature, so my default pattern is to study everything to the nth degree. So when I first started yoga teaching, I would read every book on yoga ever written and every journal would be dog-eared and highlighted until one day I thought, no, I just need to tune in. That's what I need to do. So I find that something will just draw me to their chart. And then I think, okay, we're going to go here. Then we look at where else that number might appear in their chart and put together what that might mean. So it's quite an intuitive process. To answer your question as to who I am a life path 8. I have double 8, so my destiny number is also an 8. And I'm a 44-8. So I know some people don't recognize, master numbers and that sort of thing. And I didn't actually want to look at it for a long time. So I didn't want to sound ego, oh, I'm a 44-8. Oh, look at me. Because that wasn't my intention at all. And it was actually Sarah one day who was on your podcast said something about it and said, oh, you're a 44-8. And I thought, okay, it's time for me to look a little bit more deeply into this now. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fascinating because the conversation I was having in my last podcast with Catherine Kinney, she does cosmic numerology, and we were talking a lot about the master numbers outside of the traditional ones. So the 44s, the 55, 60, 60, 77s, 88s, 99s, etc. And there are very few 44s, actually. So you're quite an anomaly, really, in a lot of cases. And she explained the cosmic connotations of the 44s, which is, you are here for a very, very powerful purpose. Could
Mhm.
you elaborate what that purpose is from your understanding? Because I know that a lot of the information that she was inspired by was by a chap who'd written a book called The Heart of Numerology by Lynn Buez, who's an amazing um, numerologist, written 15 books rather on numerology.
Mhm.
So what does it mean for you being a 44-8?
Um, Again, because my default pattern is to go deeply and study everything, it's been very strange for me with numerology. I literally read that one book and that was it for me. I just thought, I don't want to really be influenced. I want to do this my own way. So yeah, I can't really say what other people might say about 44-8 because I don't really know. I did read a couple, in years gone by, I have read a couple of books. One of them, I have to say, I read and it was talking about, I can't recall the author, I think he was quite famous, talking about certain numbers that are loser numbers. And I remember just thinking, are you joking me? I was really quite upset about that because imagining someone coming for a reading and saying, oh, well, you're one of the loser numbers.
It's like, loser, you're a loser. You might as well go now. Off you pop.
Um, yes. Anyway, so yeah, I don't really know what other people think, but I feel part of my path is to marry up the divine masculine and the divine feminine, to look at all the structured ways of doing things, which is the old me, very much so. And, sometimes I default to that still as well. And then to bring in the intuition and all of that as well. And I feel my soul's journey or my life purpose is really to marry up that traditional way of thinking and helping people with the more esoteric stuff. That's what I feel I'm here to do.
It's a bridge, isn't it? Fundamentally,
Yeah.
it's a bridge. And
And eight, as we know, 8 does represent the bridge between, and I do believe that one of my massive life lessons is to build that bridge between the material and the spiritual worlds. That's what I feel I'm here to do.
interesting, interesting. Very, very powerful. I love that, and it's interesting that, the 8 symbolically represents two circles sitting on top of each other, which represents completion on the earth and the heavenly realms.
Exactly.
So wow, I love it. Now you mentioned that when you're doing a reading that, you kind of like looking at the breakdown numbers and extracting that information. So could you just elaborate a little bit more on what you meant by that?
Yeah. So to answer your question of earlier, So I just have a dummy chart here in front of me in terms of what I look at. So I look at life path number, what I call, I don't know if this is what other people call them, but destiny number, soul number, then I call it the outer personality number. So how you are perceived by other people is how I interpret that number, rather than how you might see yourself. I look at maturity number, birthday number, current name, karmic lessons, karmic debts, business name number. So if someone has their own business and they have made up the name, so it's not someone else has made it up, and they want to know the vibration of that, then I think that's interesting to look at as well. Recurring numbers, life cycles, pinnacles, opportunities, challenges, and personal years, and turning points as well. So that's what I look at. So what was your other question?
Well, it was very, very thorough. You know, the way you're doing it is very thorough, and that's great to see, because I think it's important to extract the information based around all of those facets of it, because, you know, without it, it's almost like it's like a ship without a rudder, isn't it?
Yeah. And I do believe, like, as a psychologist, you know, having that in my background, and what I learned in organizational and corporate psychology is everyone is diverse and everyone is different, and human beings are incredibly complex. So if you just do your numerology online and do your life path number, that's a little tiny bit. It's a big bit. It's an interesting bit, that's for sure. But you need to look at all those other numbers, because those other numbers may exacerbate my eightness, or they might dampen it down. And if I don't look at the balance there, I'm not really giving someone accurate information. For example, if someone is a life path 5 and then their next most important number is 4, or they have a whole heap of 4, or they're Virgo, then that's a different sort of chart for someone that's 5533, you know, or whatever. And those people are the ones that are always late to sessions. Sorry for a 5 or a 3.
Yeah, so strike those ones off the book. We don't want to be dealing with the ones that are late. So the other question that I asked you is, like, how do you break it down? You know, like you were saying that when you do your numerology. So I know that there's different ways of calculating, you know, the life path number, for example. So do you break it down like that? And then are you looking at, you know, like if someone's a 2911 or a 27/9 or 2911 or 38/11, etc. Is that what you mean when you say that you start layering information?
Yes, so that would be part of it, for sure, because there's little nuances in some of those numbers that can make a difference, I believe, in someone's chart and how they present, and what they're here to learn as well.
Absolutely. Could you give an example of that? You know, maybe within your own chart, for example, what is, you know, is there anything that's reoccurring within your own chart that, you know, give you that aha moment, or, you know, something whimsical or intriguing about your own birth?
I brought it out, so I hadn't actually looked at it for years, and I thought, I best have a look at that before, if Hayden asked me some questions about my own chart. Well, master numbers are always interesting to look at, that's for sure, and just to see where they occur. And let's have a look at me. So I have life path 8, destiny 8, then I have a karmic lesson of an 8. I had a pinnacle of an 8 from 29 years to 38 years as well. So if I was doing someone's chart with all those 8s, one of the major questions, and doing counselling as well, I would ask them is, what is your relationship with money? Because I want to have a look at where it sits in the chart, you know, what age they may have or may not have learned those lessons, because we've all got free will. And you can tell someone all their life lessons and all the things, all their challenges and all, you know, some suggestions of what they're to do, and then they can do nothing about it. And you've got nothing, you know, it's no control over what you can do. But for example, if someone's got a karmic lesson, then a challenge, and then they're also in that year, then that's going to be a massive year for them. And so we'd look at all that together, and we'd look at, how are you going with those particular challenges around that number? So that would just be one of the ways that I pull it all together, I suppose.
Right. Okay. So you went between, in your peak years and your pinnacle years, between
29 and 38 were
38
big
was the
years for
8.
learning all about reclaiming my personal power.
Yeah.
And career, business, money, and what I thought of that compared to how I was brought up and what I truly needed to learn. So I had massive lessons around all of that. and our family lost a hell of a lot of money. And I had to, that was my big wake up call around 8 energy. And I have to tell you this little story because, this is why I don't believe in coincidence. So at some point during this time, I was walking along the beach, and I was having a lot of, and it wasn't until years later I thought about the dollar amount. I needed $8,000. I mean, hilarious, $8,000 for something. And I could not, my logical brain could not figure out how I was going to get this $8,000. And I was in a world of pain around it all. And thinking, overanalyzing, overthinking everything. And I looked down, and a $50 note washes up at my feet. I look around, there's no people, there's no surfers, or, I don't know how it's got there. But in that moment, I just got down on my knees and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, I knew this was a significant sign. But I was stubborn and willful, and I didn't learn the lesson. So it would have been about 2 weeks later. I was on a boat. We went to a little island with some family members. I was in my head again. I went for a walk by myself on the beach, quite deserted, $50 note sitting in the sand. Okay, that's two. And then it was maybe a couple of weeks later at a shopping centre, $50 note right at my feet. And that's when I went, okay, time to change my way of thinking about abundance, and money is just energy and all of that. So that's just a little story.
Oh, I love that story. That is brilliant, Emma. And what's fascinating about it, I'm curious to find out, did you keep on finding 50s until you made the 8,000?
Well, the 8,000 came in a way that you just wouldn't even believe. It was just insane. And after that, I started to find, it might have been during this time as well, it was always in denominations of 5, interestingly enough. So it was, but then it was 5-cent pieces. And 50-cent pieces. And no more $50 notes after that, but I'd be in a car park, there'd be a 5-cent, the sun glinting on this 5-cent piece for me to pick up, just to remind me so I didn't go back into the old way of thinking. That was my interpretation of that little symbol.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Wow, what a wake up call. And we've got something in common there, because that my first and second pinnacles were both 8s, and that's when I was learning all that stuff as well. I was in corporate IT recruitment, and my family lost loads of money, and it was about me standing on my own 2 feet and becoming independent, and learning lessons about business,
Yeah.
which I've then been able to use in my spiritual practices. Like, I'm in a 7 now. So I
Yeah.
get it. I understand what you went through. It's quite confrontational, isn't it? Because it's almost like someone's pulling the rug from underneath your feet.
But, without that massive lesson that you had or I had, maybe we would have taken another 8 years or 9 years by the time we, cycled round again to learn it. And, what a waste, really.
It is. It's a complete and utter waste. Yeah. So could you discuss how the vibration of a person's current name influences their numerology profile?
I have to say, I don't place too much emphasis on that. I tend to use it if someone, for example, is wanting to change their name. Maybe they're married and they think, oh, should I go back to my maiden name? Or maybe often how I use it, if someone is wanting to start a business and set up an ABN, do I use my name? Is that a good name, or should I use this other name, or whatever? That tends to be how I use it. It's just not one, for other people, and maybe that's something I explore later on, but it's not one I tend to spend too much time on.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't really, go deep into all of it if you're finding that there are certain aspects that you identify with more. Like, I was speaking with a lady called Nova Lee Wilder, and she specializes in Chaldean numerology, which is a huge emphasis around the vibration of the name,
Mm-hmm.
and and name changes, etc.
Sure.
And so what I found was that, there are certain people that gravitate, like certain numerologists that gravitate more towards the name chart,
Okay.
others that combine both, and others that purely or are more intrigued by the birth chart. And I
Yeah.
guess that I'm probably more the birth chart as well. Although I do look at the name chart.
Mm.
I find that my attention is really more on the juicy stuff. in the birth chart, but also, how it interacts with astrology as well. So, how would you, in a typical soul counseling session that you do,
Mhm. Yep.
you're obviously incorporating other modalities as well within that. Could you explain, what
Yep.
you and I?
And again, it's just my way, and I just knew that I had to do it this way. So I have a sheet that people fill in before they come upstairs, and it asks them about physical issues going on. So the first thing, particularly if someone's a bit nervous, is we'll have a look at physical manifestations in the body, and then have a look at the potential metaphysical or emotional common denominators of those and potential reasons, behind why they might have a sore, this or that or whatever it might be. And that's something, people can sort of, okay, we're starting with this physical stuff. Yep, that's okay. I feel comfortable talking about this. And then I'll always ask them what they want to get out of the session. So we have a look at that as well. And then it just sort of flows through there. So sometimes the numerology will come in very, very quickly. Sometimes we'll have a look at a few other bits and pieces, and then we go deeply into the numerology. And I sometimes do, when I do just a pure soul counselling session without the numerology reading, all I will use in that session is their life path number, and usually just their personal year. So if we're not doing too much in the numerology, just those two bits of information I find are amazing for someone who might want to go deeper. And then invariably later on they go, oh, I want to come back and do the full chart. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's sort of how I tend to work. And then we have a look at emotion. So they also have on the back of the piece of paper, circle any emotions that you feel very strongly. Then we have a look at which ones of those would you say you felt, well, your whole life, and that often that's when we get to unworthiness, and we look at, well, unworthiness kicks in between the ages of 3 and 5, I believe. And let's look at what might have happened during that time to set that little pattern. I look at the way body language is something I'm really interested in, and how people speak. So I'm always observing from the minute they walk in and how they talk about themselves. So someone that starts to say, oh, I'm an idiot, or is apologising to me every 5 minutes. I know there's probably issues with boundaries there, So it just all seems to flow. I can't really explain it because it's just intuitive and what I tend to do. But I did want to say something to you about the names. And this is interesting because I have counselled over the years quite a few adopted people. And so that's always fascinating to me when their birth name is different from the original birth name, and it might have been changed 1 week later on their birth certificate. So their adoptive parents, or it might have been 6 weeks later or whatever. Those are the ones I will look very deeply into. And Hayden, it has blown my mind over the years. I cannot tell you how many people the destiny number, so the birth name number of their original birth name, so often is exactly the same as the name they were given by then their adoptive parents. It's like, you can't make this stuff up.
Whoa, that is a huge aha moment to
Like,
see
can't
that.
get away from it. Like what you're born with, no matter if you only have that name for 5 minutes, there's obviously something important. And when people, obviously, when they have mistakes on their birth chart, I'm not sure what you do, but I always have a look at that, and I find that very interesting as well.
Ah, that's brilliant. I'm absolutely fascinated by that. So it's almost like you can't run from your destiny. It's no,
But I,
there's just no way. It's always going to be there. It's like you can't run from your shadow, isn't it? It's like it's always there,
yeah,
attached to your feet.
true, true.
Okay then. So what about life purpose then with numerology?
Yep,
Obviously, it's a huge aspect of helping people
yep.
rediscover what they're or reawaken, to what they're actually here to do. Do
Mm-hmm.
you find that a lot of the people that initially seek you out are feeling lost or stuck in their life in some way?
Absolutely. So often it's overwhelm, often it's stuckness. I'm very carefully word my website and my brochure so the right people come along. So I never have problem with the wrong sort of people, or so rarely over the years, because I want someone to read that website or read that brochure and go, oh, she's a weirdo. Great, I don't want to see you. Or they read it and think, yes, that's what I want to be doing. Life purpose, when people hear what they're here to do, can be a massive life bulb moment for sure for a lot of people. And when you're feeling lost and stuck, knowing what your soul before you were born chose to do in this lifetime, that's, to me, amazing.
It's huge. It's huge. It's a massive transition. So as a Life Path 9, I was kind of working within an 8 environment for those first two pinnacles. And I always felt like a fish out of water. I was like, I feel like I'm living someone else's life. And then, and I realized that my 9 is here to be of service. I was like, oh, I'll try that and see what happens. And of course, then, you start realigning with fulfillment, because your purpose is being, it's actually being fulfilled in so many different ways. So,
Okay.
I think that it creates almost like a relief within
Yes.
somebody,
Yeah,
doesn't
that would be a
like
good way
you can
of driving.
finally breathe, can't you?
Mm,
And you finally know what it is that you're here
yeah.
to do, and where your skills are as well. So um could you share a memorable experience, maybe, of where numerology has provided profound clarity or transformation for a client of yours?
Mm. A lot. And I'm not saying that to big note myself. It's not that at all. But that's why I just love the work that I do, because I would say every session, is like that, when people come in not having a clue. Or I have to say, a lot of my clients, not too surprising, I suppose, because of my background, they've seen a lot of psychologists, they've seen a lot of counsellors, they may have seen, 3 psychiatrists as well. And I always ask them, it's always one of the first questions I ask is, have you ever seen a psychologist before? And have you seen a psychic? Have you ever had a reading? Because, you get a bit of an idea of maybe there might be some religious trauma in their background sometimes, if they've never gone down that path. And invariably people say, yes, I have seen, sometimes quite a lot, but they didn't understand me. They didn't get me. It was just that they were sitting there nodding and, gave them a few suggestions and didn't really, they didn't really get much out of it. And there are fantastic psychologists out there, and absolutely at times it's exactly what you need. And obviously the people seeing me are in a different space usually. They're there, they're eager to know more. And I'm just so happy I can provide that. And it can be completely life-changing for people. As I say, I'm not saying that to big note myself. It's just, this is why I love it so much.
Oh,
And
look,
I'm
I
really
get it. I get it, Emma. That's the thing, is like, you get the evidence on a day-to-day basis, and you know that the work is transformational, because it's not just with testimonials or references that you get. It's about, the heartfelt, sort of things that people say to you. They'll say, this has been truly life-changing, and things like that. And actually sometimes you feel quite humbled by it, don't you? Because it's like, whoa, like I played a part in that part of the awakening process for that person,
yeah.
and it's made a massive difference. And then you just think, oh, this is just the best thing to do, because and it's not being big-headed, and it's not blowing smoke up your proverbial.
Mm,
I find a lot of the people that I see as well, they also say the same thing. If they've been to see, like, you know, mainstream
yeah.
psychoanalysts or psychologists, that doesn't really scratch the surface with where they need to go. Because I think ultimately people really just need to remember that they're divine, that they are a divine, ancient, immortal being of light living out a temporary human experience, and that they are they're sovereign beings. And
Yeah.
that remembrance is what's needed, I think, right now on the planet, rather than like any of the other stuff.
Mm.
Which
Totally agree. And I think one of the things I say in most sessions is this: I pre-warn them. So I say, okay, we're going to go through this chart, and I just want you to understand that everything I'm about to tell you, your soul chose this before you were born. And just that little knowing. And so when they say, oh, I've got this pattern and whatever it might be, and I just gently remind them, it's not done in a blaming way. It's not like that at all. It's just taking responsibility. Gosh, you must be such a brave soul to have chosen, particularly nines, I have to say, because you choose one of the hardest paths. Well done, Hayden. Nines and master numbers are probably, in my opinion, choose the hardest paths of all most of the time. And so just that knowing that, oh gosh, this is what my soul chose, and only the bravest souls might choose a tricky path as well. Just that is amazing knowledge, I believe.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because I think that you're right. There are certain numbers that tend to be playing the role of the Olympic spiritual athlete. Like I've often found the 2911s, the 3811s, some of the nines as well. Anyone with a karmic 16 or a 13 or 19 or 14, you can see it straight away. And it's like, whoa, there's so much embedded within those numbers, the past life implications, the ancestral stuff.
Yeah.
Do you approach numerology readings for your, family members when looking at relational dynamics or like the ancestral stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Because my mother was also an 8. And when I found that out, I was like, whoa, okay. And because you often see, because I'm counselling and I'll just get people to, obviously I'm not doing full readings for the rest of their family. Well, often I end up doing that. But in the session, I'll say, just make sure you've got birth dates of mum, dad, sisters, brothers, ex-husband or whatever. And let's have a look at the patterns there. And so often you will see that pattern coming down, and then when you do say the child's chart after you've done mum's chart, and you'll see that 16/7 in there as well. And I have to say, I counsel a lot of 16/7s, which makes sense because they're looking for something more. Of course they're going to not seek out maybe a traditional psychologist, so it makes sense. But yeah, it's comforting, I think, for those people to know, okay, I'm not mad, my life's not a complete disaster. This is something I chose. And then part of my session, obviously, is not just to leave them hanging. A massive part of the session is, here are your strategies, here are suggestions. So they come with a whole list of things. What can I do now? Now that you understand this about yourselves, okay, here's 10 books, here's some podcast, here's whatever. So
Wonderful. Yeah. So you're giving them practical action steps to take in order for them to create that transformation within them.
And I don't work, and I know this is a terrible business model, but it's just my truth and how I have to be. I say to most people, because I do an intensive session, that's 2.5 hours. But, it's a lot, but it's for people that are so ready to change. And I say to people, unlike a traditional counsellor or psychologist, they say, okay, you've got to come back next week, come back for months on end. I don't want to see you again. I want to give you enough from today's session that you now have so many things to go away. Of course, if you struggle or whatever, I'm here, but that's how I like to work. Because otherwise I'm going to be telling the same thing next week. They come in.
Do you know what? I completely hear you. I'd rather, have people come to me that are ready to do the work and, they're not kind of stuck in their red energy is what I call it. It's their victimhood, their safety, security and survival. Because, what I've found is a lot of those people are not prepared to commit to taking the action to create the change. So it's like they're going to keep on that perpetual loop until the penny drops. So, I think that's a brilliant way to do it. And actually, it's more fair in a way as well, because you're not trying to make people practitioner dependent. And, there's a lot of charlatans, I think, in the industry that are just interested in getting rebookings and it being about the money, which, is a bit of a pity.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay. So what about sorry, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, and on that note, a lot of people do get very excited once they do a chart and they say, oh, my husband needs this. And I go, stop, hang on. Is your husband open to hearing this? And they'll say, oh, no. There's no point in me seeing them until they are at that point, till they consciously make the decision themselves to come along, I don't want to see them.
That's brilliant. And I feel the same way with that because sometimes people will purchase like gift vouchers for Christmas for sessions. And then
Yes,
those people never even they never even use their session because they didn't want it in the first place.
exactly. Yeah.
You've got to take responsibility for your own healing journey. And you can't tell someone, oh, you need healing. It's quite an
Yeah.
insult, isn't it?
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say.
Yeah, so I was just going back into sort of the magic of the numbers for a second. I wanted to find out if you have a favorite number or a number that's meaningful to you outside of the eight. Is there a number that you just really connect with more than any others, and
Yeah.
why?
7,
Oh,
because it's the number of diving deep. And that's what I love to do. So I love sevens. I love sevens. I work in a healing centre and I often use her as an example. Our naturopath is a 7 and she's the perfect naturopath because you go in there and you say, oh, well, I've got these symptoms, blah, blah, blah. So she doesn't then just hand you a pill and go, there you go, dear, bye-bye. She'll be there at 11:30 at night researching every, scientific paper ever written about your symptoms and going down the rabbit hole, and she loves it. So it's just a perfect job for someone like her. So I tend to really, really, and I have to say, I don't know what you've noticed over the years, but sevens can struggle during school time in particular when they're trying to fit in, because often they're seen as a little different, sometimes a little eccentric or a little unusual. And if I have a parent who I'm seeing or I do their child psychology, their numerology, and they're a teenager, I always say, don't worry. If you're worried that they have no friends, they will find their tribe. And usually it's a little bit later on, I've noticed, for sevens. So I have like a soft spot, I suppose you would say, for sevens.
oh, well, there you go then. Well, you must have a soft spot for me then, because that's my day number. So
Oh,
yeah, the 16/7 day number, and I actually, yeah, I felt like that at school. I felt like, I was the odd one that people were looking at, and yeah, it was a lot later on in life that I managed to connect up with the people that were meant for me.
yeah,
So yeah, but it's hard. It is hard being a seven in a traditional sort of environment like a comprehensive school, and with that sort of being gay as well and being a nine. It was tough. It wasn't a pleasurable experience at all. But so much of the wisdom that you learn is through the early years, and the tower experience has actually been one of the biggest awakening processes that I've had. So I tend to, as a 16/7, learn through the implosion of old, sort of structures in my life to get the consequent clarification, and of course working through the issues of betrayal and all of that comes
yeah.
with that too.
Absolutely. And obviously that's, a common reason people do seek counselling is because someone has betrayed them. And so once they start to go, oh, right, this is on my chart, and particularly if I've got it as a karmic debt here, then yes, I'm going to, in my life, have patterns of people cheating on me, people doing the dirty on me, my best friend, doing a runner, all these things, or in business, the accountant running away with all the money, these sorts of things that can happen. And then them starting to look and see, but it's not happening anymore. Wow, that's amazing. You've probably gone some way towards, healing that trust issue. Let's see what else we can do. So yeah, it's a biggie. It's a biggie.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a challenge for sure. And okay, so looking ahead then, how do you envision the evolution of your practice and the role of numerology in your own personal growth?
Good question. Got a crystal ball?
Well, actually, yes, I do.
Yes, you do. Um, I just, I'm trying to go with the flow. I'm actually in my 1 year this year. So, opportunities, fun things going on. And yeah, just trying to be open to where that might lead. And do you know human design? Are you familiar with human design?
I'm actually studying human design
Oh,
alongside of the color mirrors at the moment. Yeah, sort of as an extra thing, and it's brilliant. And merging those two worlds together.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Very powerful.
Wow.
Very powerful. I work alongside a human design specialist, and when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, I don't want to look at it. It's going to be too confusing, and so I sort of didn't want to look at it for a couple of years, and it kept coming into my awareness, and people started to ask me about it. So I thought, okay, time's right. Got some books, started to do some reading, looked at my chart, and did all of that. So I'm a generator, and I have to, as you know, with generators, wait for the invitation. So when you say, well, what might be happening in the future? Well, I don't really know. We'll see what invitations come there. Like getting this invitation from you, it was like, I just feel into it. Is it a yes or a no? Hell yeah, right. That's the next thing I'm going to be doing. So yeah, we'll see is
It's
the answer to your question.
fantastic. Well, it's a definite compatible modality with the work that we're doing as numerologists, and I think it's just one of those tools that's so reliable as well. And the more you delve into it, the more you start understanding about how you respond, to situations in your life. And if you are emotionally driven or you're through your sacral, your gut responses. I'm a 4/6 manifesting generator, and so for me, I'm a teacher, but I have to teach away from people. So I can't have like a classroom full of students because I get too impacted by the density of the energy within that environment. I get drained. So,
Mm,
but I find by teaching online, I'm fine. It can
yeah.
almost keep, and I have to use my network as well, which is something that I'm um, using more of because as a 7/9, I'm a bit of a hermit. So I'm now my karmic lesson is the 2. So I'm having now to really start integrating my networks through my human design, but also through my karmic too. And it's teaching me so much about, trusting again, and actually not doubting that people are, here to help as well, instead of trying to do everything on my own, which is almost impossible, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. For
That's
sure.
right. So,
But it's
okay.
so wonderful to see someone like you. And I know, um, sadly, it is rare to have people that are living their soul purpose. So it's so joyful when I speak to someone like you who is doing that. And don't we wish that everyone could do that? But with more information, so self-analysis, whether you look at a full astrology chart, your human design, numerology, whatever methods to understand yourself better, it's like I just see it as little pieces of the puzzle. And like I said, human beings are so incredibly complex. If you get an opportunity like you and me to live and practice our soul's purpose, we are blessed. It is amazing.
Absolutely. We're living on one of the best times on the planet to be able to step into, who you're becoming, I think. And more people are going to get these opportunities, I feel, as we, go out into the new earth and we align with that beautiful, Aquarian
Mm.
age. And which really, for me, it was interesting to hear you saying that your favorite number is the 7, because the 7 to me is turquoise. It's very Aquarian energy and it's very Pleiadian
Mm-hmm.
and it's very Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time when we're attracted to the 7, it's because we are new Earth dwellers and we have brought in wisdom from Atlantis, potentially even from the Pleiades. And this is why I feel like you are, really doing this amazing work that you're doing and bridging the corporate and celestial in such a magnificent way and anchoring that light through your 44 dynamic as a master number, which is, as I said, it is rare. So, give yourself a big pat on the back, Emma. You're an incredible inspiration to so many people. And, especially for those that, have gone through the mainstream route of psychology and they're feeling trapped because of all the legislation.
Well, I have to say, obviously, I'm not saying her name, but one of my clients this week is what is called a provisional psychologist. So that means they've done their 4 years honours degree, and then you have to do 2 years. So you do 2 years either as a master's or working under another psychologist full time in order to be able to apply for registration. but she was, really stuck, really overwhelmed, all of this. And it was just so amazing to help someone like her to see where oh, sorry, I should have said she has done this as a mature age student. So I think she was in her 30s. And to give her hope that there's other ways that she can work as a psychologist or use those skills when she's just starting out, just about to start out. So that was really very satisfying.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's like light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, oh, there's a different way of doing things. So where do people find you then, Emma?
So I work at a place called I Am Healing Gifts in Coomera in Queensland. And yeah, it's a beautiful centre. I've been there nearly 10 years now, and it started up 10 years ago. And we have all sorts of healers and psychics and all sorts, anything you can imagine. So that's where I am. So unlike you, I don't like Zoom. I don't tend to like those things for various reasons. But I do phone readings, a lot of phone readings, which I find is exactly the same process. I can sit there in my pajamas and do it. I quite like that. So I do either face-to-face. The soul counselling, I always do face-to-face. I just feel there's so much nuance. I want to be right with that person there. Plus, as part of the session, they lie down on a bed as well, and we do some energy work with calling in their guides and shamanic drumming and whatnot as well. So I really want to be there in the room with them. But certainly the numerology readings, I do a lot of them over the phone.
And your website is emmajanetzki.com.au, yeah?
That's right. And Janetzki with a Z.
Yes, with a Z. I'll put the link of your website in the description underneath today's podcast so that people can easily start interacting with you. And especially, if they're living in Queensland and they are, wanting to have a face-to-face session, which I think, is actually becoming more and more rare. So it's offering something which, a lot of people still really absolutely love
Yes.
the seeing the eyes and teeth and, and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff as well, which is great. Fantastic. Well, is there any last thing that you have that you wanted to share to budding numerologists or anybody really? Just a last message that you feel is going to help them in their life right now.
Yes, I feel, and this obviously is seven energy again, to trust your intuition with it, because I know you can go and do apparently little courses and whatnot and read the books, but at the end of the day, you've got to feel into it. And sort of, it's almost like, it's hard to explain, but be inside the numbers. When I started to read about Pythagoras, and gosh, this is a very smart man, the father of mathematics, and hello, he understood intuition. He understood the energy of numbers 2000 something years ago. That was incredible. But that might not be your way. It may be Chinese numerology or one of the other methods. That might be your way. Wonderful. And it might just be you use it with your friends or for yourself. But it is accessible to everyone. That's amazing. And if you're drawn to it, go for it, go for it.
I love that. Absolutely. It's not about how many books you've read. It's about what it means to you and how you can interpret that vibration. That was what I call the language of light. And so
Yeah.
that's well said. Thank you so much, Emma, for being with us today on the Numerology Show. A genuine heartfelt thank you for sharing your profound insights, experiences, and your gifts as well. So make sure you check out Emma's website. If you're drawn to her vibration, stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the mystical world of numbers and the impact they have on our lives. Until next time. Bye for
Thank
now.
you, Hayden. Thank you.
Bye.